Over to her to begin the session.
Right, can everybody hear me? If you can hear me, go ahead and raise your hand down there at the bottom. Okay, so I see a lot of raised hands, so I assume that means you can all hear me. Okay, my name is Barbara Elzie. I am Math and Statistics faculty at Bluegrass. This year I have been in the capacity of Distance Learning Professional Development. And this particular session I have already done twice at Bluegrass, and it was very well attended. So I hope you enjoy it as much as the Bluegrass faculty that have been to it have enjoyed it and get a lot out of it. I'm going to be sharing the screen with you a lot. There'll be times, though, when I'm going to close down that share. I want to show you how things will look actively with students, but I'll have to cover up the students' names and then reshare the screen. So please bear with me when I do that. I'm going to go ahead now, though, and share the screen with you. I'm using our e-community for a lot of this, so that it won't violate any student problems. Okay, so you should see now on your screen the announcement page on the e-community. What we're going to look at first is something called setting review status. And I have a lot of PD training set up in my e-community, so I'm going to show you how we do, first of all, this thing called set review status, and then I'll explain what that does. So I'm going to hit on this particular module. We have quality assurance for online courses at Bluegrass now, and there are 4 modules in our training sessions. And I have this thing called review status enabled. Let me first show you how we set it, and then we'll look at it from the student's point of view so you can understand what it does. So if we click right here beside whatever we're setting this review status on in the little drop-down menu, you'll notice right now, if I go down to set review status, it says, well, this one's already enabled, but yours, if you've never enabled it before, will say unenabled or disabled, I believe, or disable. All right, and you have to click it to enable to make this review status available to your students or to whoever is using the content, and I'll hit submit. Now what this does is I'm going to turn the edit mode off. Here's the student side of things, and a student, if they're working through particular modules, especially in an online class where you have multiple things going on, once they've finished it, they can mark it as reviewed and realize that they've already done it, and they can move on to the next thing. So that's what that does, is it allows the students to tell where they are so they do not lose their place. And if you've got a lot of things, one right after the other, I would really suggest that you do this for your students, especially if you have something like a reading module and then a video module and then some other sort of PDFs or something that they have to open, just a long string of things. This allows them to tell where they are. Now we're going to see as I go to this next item that you can also tell if they have reviewed an item. Now, let me just make this caveat. If they don't hit review, it's not going to show up in this next step when we go to look at it. So that's very important. This reviewed status only will show up in our viewpoint if they've actually clicked on it. But we can look and see who has reviewed and who has clicked on their review status by going to right here. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm still in student mode. Let me turn that back on. All right, right here, and we can look at user progress. And user progress, now this is a faculty e-community, so you can see that right now this new module has only been reviewed by me and one other faculty member. And I don't mind you seeing these names since these are faculty members. All right. before I go on to statistics tracking, I just want to see if anyone has any questions about that feature. So let me switch over to you all's screen. I know there's a lot of people in here, so okay. Any questions? I'm not seeing any questions. Let me just double check here. Okay, then let's go back. All right, so the next thing I want to show you is something called statistics tracking. And at the end, if hopefully we can get through everything I've kind of got on my list here, I want to show you all the reports that you can run that will really help you in tracking student progress. But in order to be able to use those reports, you have to enable statistics tracking. So I'm going to do it here in my eCommunity with some of my PD trainings. I'm going to turn on that statistics tracking. And I can tell, for example, how many people have accessed these quality assurance modules if I've got the statistics tracking enabled. And you'll notice right here, this tells me that I do have it enabled. But if you want to do it in your own course, if you'll go beside whatever the assignment is, click in this drop-down menu, and here's statistics tracking. Now the default is that it's off. All right, but if we want to turn it on, all we do is click on that. Of course, mine is already on, but we click on and hit submit. And later on, I'm going to show you all the reports that we can run as a result of having turned on this statistics tracking. Now, the nice thing is, even if you don't want to run all these reports, if you turn the statistics tracking on, then if you ever decide to use those reports, you can use them. If you don't turn it on, you don't have that option. So just realize it allows you the option of looking at a lot of reports to see what kind of activity you've got going on in each module, in each portion of your Blackboard content. You can see who's been accessing things, how long they've been accessing it, how are they scoring. You can tell how's a student doing in average time in comparison to the other students in the class. And I'm going to show you a little bit of that later on when we run some reports. All right, so the next thing I want to show you is how to tell whether your test questions are good ones, and to look at them and see if there are certain test questions that students are just missing as a whole. So for this, though, I'm going to go to one of my courses so we can actually go to a test. Well, this is not going to show us any student results. It's just going to show us average results and so forth. So let's go to my exam 1. I still have students taking exam 2. So, all right, so if I go to this exam 1 down at the bottom, which all of the students have taken at this point, and I want to look at whether my test questions are good questions. So I'm going to go over here to the drop-down menu. Again, this kind of drop-down menu beside every single content item is your friend. You'll notice item analysis right here near the bottom. So if I click on that, it's going to pop up here as a report, and I just click on that report. And it tells me all kinds of information about my test. First of all, there's 100 points possible. There are 20 questions. There are no in progress right now, 26 completed tests, and the average time on that test was 1 hour and 12 minutes. Now over here, it discriminates whether or not the question was a good one or a poor one. And notice it's telling me that I had 3 questions that it's deemed as poor. I'm not necessarily in agreement with that once I go back, but it does at least tell me that there may be some things I need to look at. It also tells me what it considers the difficulty level of the questions. And this is based a lot on how many students get it correct and how many miss the question. So according to the difficulty level here, my first exam was an easy one, and I would be in complete agreement with that. the first exam in stats is mostly vocabulary, so it makes sense that it would be an easy exam. Now I can go down here. Each exam question is worth 5 points, and so I can look over here and see what the average score is that every student is making on an exam question. So since on this first question, which is a numerical question, the average score is 4.43 out of 5 possible, that's pretty good. I can look down, and most students are getting the second one right with 4.97 out of 5, and I can go through and see which ones they seem to be having difficulty on. Notice this one right here, they're only making 3.66 points out of 5. So I might want to look at that question and see if it's a fair one. I can simply click on that question. It'll bring the question up, and it will show me all the information about the question. There's our average score, 26 graded attempts on it. If you're interested in the standard deviation, that is there. As stats professors, of course, we're interested in that, but for most people, that's not information that they really care about. But we can read through the question, see if it's a fair question or not, or if it's just one of those that students tend to have more difficulty with. Now, the nice thing about this, now as a stats professor, I don't tend to have multiple choice questions. I tend to have more numeric questions. But if you do have multiple choice questions, when you look at an individual question, it will break it down into how many students are answering part A, how many are answering part B, part C, part D, and so on. So if you've got a particular answer in there that's misleading them to answer incorrectly, you can see it here and go, oh, maybe I need to reword that particular response to the multiple choice questions if it's misleading them away from the actual answer. Okay, let me go back and check and see if we've got some questions before I go on. Okay.
Barbara, you do have a question. You're actually in mine and yours personals chat. Rita Thomas asked if you do a course copy, do the review and tracking settings copy as well?
They should, although I would double check them. Everything should course copy, but again, double check them just to make sure that they are there.
If you click on that arrow next to my name, you can go back to the main chat area at the top right-hand corner of your screen.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm seeing that now. All right. Okay, let's see if we got any more questions. Just Rita's. Okay. All right, let me continue on then. Okay, so the next thing we're going to look at is making a prerequisite assignment. Let's suppose that you have assignments that you would like for them to do before they do other assignments. Then you can use a prerequisite assignment. So I'm just going to go to one of the assignments that my students have already worked through here, since I'm in the student end of things right here. All right, so in chapter 1, they have a quiz they have to do. Let's suppose that I want to make sure that before they try the chapter 2 quiz, they have done the chapter 1 quiz. So my chapter 2 quiz is right here. And I'm going to make it so they've got to do the chapter 1 quiz before they do this quiz. So to do that, again, we're going to use this drop-down menu that is our friend. And we're going to use something called adaptive release. So I'm going to click on adaptive release. And I can choose through adaptive release also to display something as available and for a certain period of time. I don't generally use this in adaptive release, but you certainly can. But what I do tend to do is use these options down here at the bottom. So if I want, for example, for students to perform a 70% on a quiz before they're allowed to go on to this one that I'm in right now, I can make them actually make that grade before they're allowed to access this quiz. So the previous quiz, the previous quiz was quiz 1.1 to 1.3. So I'm just going to click on that. That's the prerequisite. And they only have one attempt on that item. And I want them to score greater than or equal to 70%. Now, actually, my quiz is based on points, so 70% is just 7 out of 10. Now, notice we can also ask that they score between certain percentages, but I find that most people, when they're setting a prereq, want them to score a certain percentage or higher, or a certain score or higher. We can also make sure they've read something. So notice the review status down here that we have already talked about, enabling review status. Let's say you've got a reading assignment and you want to make sure they read it before they do the quiz or whatever your next assignment is. You can select that reading assignment, and notice it brings up the entire stuff that's on my content area, and I can, for example, here's my books and videos. I can click on that, and a student will have to enable the review status before they can go on and do this quiz that I'm in right now. And if I click submit, now it is a prerequisite that they do that first quiz and also that they do the book and video part before they are allowed to do the homework quiz that I was currently in. Now, that's a lot of stuff real quick, so let me make sure we've got questions or not. Okay, I'm not seeing any. Okay, so let me go back here. Okay, I do have a question from Stephanie Vaughn. I've been creating groups for quizzes because I discovered some were not submitting the chapter guides first. Will this concept work instead of creating groups? Yes, it will, but realize this about it. I talked about when you enable reviewer status. So if you're using it to make sure, okay, but you're using it for quizzes. Yes, so it'll work for quizzes. Just realize if you're using it for reading or video, that when you put it on for reading or video, they only have to open it in order for it to count them as having done the assignment. So that is one of the disadvantages. It will count them as actually having done it if they open it. But there's really no way that we can tell if they're reading an assignment or if they're watching an entire video. We can only tell by the amount of time that they spent, and we'll talk about that when we get to reports. Okay, so let me move on here. All right, so we're going to look now at things that might be very important. I know at Bluegrass we do starfish reports where we tell what students have not come to class and who is in a failing status. In an online class, that's a little more complicated because we really do need to look and see who has been in working on stuff and who hasn't. And of course, our grade book will tell us whether or not they're passing the class. But there is a quicker way. We have a place called evaluation in our control panel. And for this, I'm going to move back to my e-community so I don't show you my student names. So let me get back in there. All right, so if you go to this option down here, it's beneath tools. Now, if you're in a normal Blackboard course, it'll say course tools rather than organization tools. I'm in my e-community right now. And then right beneath that is evaluation. So if I click on that, we're going to go to the performance dashboard. Now you'll notice these are all faculty members, so I'm not concerned with showing these to you. And this is a faculty e-community where they can go in and look at online PD. And of course, you'll notice there's a lot of people who haven't been in for quite a while because they're not in the e-community doing much. For example, 193 days. That's quite a bit of time since she's been in the e-community. On the other hand, I can tell who's been in here lately. Here's someone who's been in here fairly recently. Of course, I've been in here today. Brittany is, I believe Brittany's in this session. She's only been in here, or was in here yesterday. So we can tell how long it's been since they've been in the course. And of course, this is important. If they haven't been in the course for 10 days as a student, that's something to worry about. We can also tell whether they've clicked on review status. It's all right there. Now, as I said earlier, if they've not actually clicked the review status, they could still have viewed the assignment and actually read the assignment or done the assignment. It's just that they have to manually click on review status for it to show up right here. And of course, it tells that they've been using the discussion board and been in that. It will also tell grades. And of course, we can go over right here to each one of these people's grades and click on it. Now, this is a faculty e-community. There's no grades. So if I click on here, it's not going to show anything for these people. Okay, so let me move on to color coding your grade book. And I want to show you how to do this in this e-community, but then I'm going to turn off the screen sharing. I want to show you what it looks like in an actual grade book in use. So first, let's just go to the Grade Center here. I'll go to my full Grade Center. In your Grade Center, I always tell people that Manage is your friend. There's a lot of good stuff under Manage in your grade book. And if you haven't used color codes, here's a nice way to tell who's doing well, who's not doing well, what you might need to still grade. There's all kinds of things we can do with it. So if I go down to grading color codes, I'm going to click on that. And I can choose if I would like my grade book to show that people are in progress on an exam, for example, I can color code it. Now, before I do any of this color coding, though, up here at the top, very, very important, is this one little button that says Enable Grading Color Codes. And if I don't hit that button, that little click right there, none of this will take place. So that's very important. Then down under grading status, if I would like to color code the students who are in progress on an assignment, if I have something where they can stop and come back on, I might want to color code that. I can just click here and change that color to whatever I like. I might change it to this yellow and apply it. If something needs grading, I can again color code it. Maybe I want to make that green and apply it. If I want to exempt a grade, I can color code it. I use this so rarely that I can't see a reason to color code an exemption, but you may have some reason you want to do that. Now, I can also decide some grade range criteria, and this is the part that I tend to use a lot. I like to color code in my grade book the students who are doing really well. I want to send them kudos emails. And then the students who aren't doing so well, I want to color code them so that I can reach out to them and see what kind of help that they might need. So what we can do here is I'm going to say more than a 90%. I'm going to color code in my grade book, and I'll color code this the same as I do in my normal grade book. I usually make that blue. Get where I can see my apply. This little stop sharing thing is getting in the way. Go away. There we go. And then I'm going to add a criteria. There's this button right here so that I can also put the lower grades in a different color. So I want less than a 60%. Anybody who's failing, I want to know who they are. So I'm going to make that red and apply it. All right, now that I've set these criteria, my grade book is going to show up with these colors. For those students who are making A's, it's going to show up in blue. For those students who are making failing grades, it's going to show up in red. And anybody in progress will show up in orange, or if I need to grade something, it will show up in green. And of course, we need to hit submit. Now, this, of course, is a faculty e-community, so none of these colors are showing anything because they don't have grades. I'm going to turn off the share screen for a minute and bring up my student gradebook so you can see what this looks like. And but I need to cover up their names before I share it with you. So give me a moment, bear with me.
Barbara, you actually had a couple of questions if you want to answer those while you're doing that.
Okay, I can do that, yes. Let's see.
Elizabeth Cole said, that looks like a good e-community. Can I join even though I'm not in BCTC?
I imagine you could, yeah. If you just type, it doesn't have a password or anything. So if you just type in the name of the e-community, I'll get that for you in a second. Let me answer the two other questions first, and I'll tell you what my e-community is. Let's see, Elizabeth, is the grade range based off their class average? What if you don't use an average but a weighted total? This will do, the grade range will be for every assignment. So it will highlight every assignment in your grade book. So if you've got different quizzes, different homeworks, each one of those will be highlighted in blue if they have a 90%, highlighted in red if they've failed that assignment. So it does it for specific columns. Let's see, Denise, your question is, if you score based on points, not percentages, will the color coding option still pick up the percentages? That's a good question. I'm afraid I don't know the answer. I would have to try it out and see, because I use scores in my class. I always put it as scores when I do the color coding, so I'd have to play around with it and try it just to see what happened there. And I imagine you could try it in your own grade books. See if it shows up for a percentage.
You also had a question from James. Said, how is the days since last access different from the one in the Grade Center?
How is the, I'm sorry, repeat that question.
How is the days since last access different from the one in the Grade Center?
Oh, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. They should be exactly the same. So it's just that performance dashboard gives you a little more information about the review status as well. Okay, so let me take off my sharing for a moment. I'm not seeing any more questions. So I'm going to unshare with you here. And I'll just talk to you as I'm doing this. I'm going to my student account. I just want to cover up their names so that you can see the grade book and the scores and how it colors them. But of course, I won't be violating any FERPA here. All right, so let me pull up something else just to cover this up. Okay. All right, so I'm going to share with you again. Oop, 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 oop. Go back, go back, go back. Where are you? All right, there we go. All right, so, well, I keep clicking on it. It's not helping me. All right, so you'll notice that here within my grade book, my students' names or my students' grades are all highlighted in blue if they've got an A on the assignment. And then, of course, you can see the one right there in the middle that is red because the student failed that particular homework quiz. And, of course, I don't have any colors for the grades that are in between because I just tend to give out kudos to those in blue, and then I ask those who are in red if they need some help. And this is just a quick way for me to see how students are doing as a whole. All right, so I'll flip back here. I thought I heard something pop up as a question. Let's see. Oh, yes. Okay, so just a suggestion, Elizabeth, use paler colors so it's higher contrast and easier to read in the cell. That's a good suggestion, Elizabeth, and I probably should do that. All right, so let's go now to the retention center. And if you haven't used the retention center before, again, I'm going to go back to my e-community so that I'm not violating and I'm accidentally showing it right now. All right, so in the e-community, I'm going to go down below evaluation in my control panel. You'll see something that says retention center. So I will click on that. And in the retention center, I can see what students have missed deadlines. Now, of course, this is kind of funny because I did in a PD session last week, I had people do a little exercise in rubrics. And of course, all of these people that are in the e-community who weren't at that PD session have missed the deadline for the rubrics. And of course, it's showing up here. They, of course, did not have to do that if they weren't in the session. So all of those have deadlines. In fact, if we go down and look at some of the others, there's a few that'll show the people. Yeah, here's the people who were in the session because they did not miss those deadlines. It will also tell us any grade alerts. Now, of course, since these people are all faculty members, there's no grade alerts. They don't have grades. But we can set a grade alert of if they're making less than 60%, it'll put a little red dot here to tell us that there are students who are failing. Also an activity alert if they've been in for a certain amount or not been in for a certain amount of time, it will give that activity alert and we can see who's been in recently. Access alert would be the same thing, except activity is really working in the content, whereas access is just coming into the course. Now, if at any time you want to see all of your courses at a quick glance, rather than just the course that you're in, we can go up here to the very top where our own name is, and we can click on that. And the fourth item down, this one right here with the double arrows, is the retention center for every course we have. Now, if I click on that, it tells me a breakdown. Notice this is my e-community. 27 students missed deadlines. I'm not worried about that, of course, since these are faculty in a professional development community. 31 students didn't contribute anything. Well, it's, again, something that faculty can come in and use. And 28 people just didn't log in during a recent period. That's normal. But if I wanted to look at my own stats course, notice that my courses are here from previous semesters. They're also here for this semester. I can click on this and I can see that I have 24 students who missed some deadline. I have 4 students who are in a risk category and 5 who have not been in 5 days. Now that's not unusual. My students just had their midterm and we're getting ready to go into spring break. They didn't have any assignments after the midterm, so I'm not concerned too much about that right now. But if I was, I could go and look and see which students have been inactive for a while. All right, let me go back and see if I've got questions before I move on. Okay. All right, not seeing anything, so I'll just move forward. Okay, now, this next thing, it's going to be different for you the very first time you do it, and then it will be the same when you go in thereafter. Wait a minute, I've just got something that popped up. This is all great information. This is my first semester teaching, so I have some much more basic question. Is there someone I can contact to help me? Melissa, it depends on the campus you're on. On Bluegrass, I answer such questions for support of faculty. What campus are you on, Melissa? Carlton. I don't know which is that JCTC? Yes. Okay. So you might check. There is probably a Blackboard specialist there who teaches the Blackboard sections who can help you with support. I don't know offhand who that would be. I could look into it for you, however. I'm sure there is someone there who is support for Blackboard, though, because generally, and JCTC is a big campus. I can't imagine they don't have somebody. So you might ask around who the Blackboard support person is on your campus. Certainly at Bluegrass, we have a Blackboard person who teaches board on a regular basis, and then I'm also there as support for people in my role. Okay, so let me move on to changing your picture in Blackboard. All right, so I'm going to go back to my Blackboard here. And up here in the right-hand side, you may notice you can't quite see what this picture is, but I'm going to go and click on this. And once I've clicked on it, I'll click on my View Profile right there on my picture. Now, the very first time you do this, you are going to be asked to sign up for a profile. And you might think, well, I already have a Blackboard account, but this is different. You're just signing up for a profile. You're putting whatever information you want in there. So you do have to go through the process of signing up for that profile. Now, since I've already done that, I can't show you that process, but it's a fairly easy process. And then once you're in and you have a profile, you can change this picture. Now, notice this is really not me, obviously. All I need to do is hit Settings and Privacy. And notice right here, it says Change Picture. So I'm going to click on Change Picture. And I'm going to upload a new one. So I'll hit Upload a new one. And I've got all of these different pictures in my on my computer. I'm just going to choose one. Maybe I'll be a little devil today. And notice that it allows you to crop it. If it's too big, it crops it down to the size it needs. This one is about perfect. And I can hit Save. And down here, or actually up here at the top, I must hit Save again or it's not going to change it. And now that is the little icon that students are going to see next to my picture when they're in Blackboard. And of course, you can change that at any time. Let me see if there's any questions before I proceed onward. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so James Gibson says to Melissa, please also see the LMS Training and Resource Center for Self-Service Help. And he's got a link here for you. So Melissa, hopefully you are seeing that so you can use that link. All right, so Sharon Down, is it bigger for students or more microscopic? Or how will students see it larger? It's still tiny, Sharon. So it's just like when you open an email and you see that little round circle of somebody's face. It's exactly the same for students. James, I didn't know you could use icons instead of photos or change it periodically. Thanks. Okay. All right. So looks like that is the last of those questions. Let me move on then to some things that I've noticed people need help with and they're not aware of in Blackboard. One of the first things is let's get rid of any extra courses you have hanging around on your Blackboard homepage. So I'm going to go back to my Blackboard homepage. I'll get over here. And of course, I've got a lot of courses right here, and I haven't intentionally left one of them on from last semester down here. Now, this is my first semester, or this semester course, and then I've got some summer and fall courses here that I certainly don't want to make disappear. But this one is a course from last fall. I'm going to make it disappear. So to do that, I'm going to go over here to this little gear shift that's on the right side. I'm going to click on that. And anything that has check marks is going to show up on my home page. So if I don't want it to show up on my home page, I've got to click those check marks off. Now you'll notice this is stuff from 2015 back here, 2016. None of that is checked, so it's not showing up on my home page. But let me go down and find that course from, no, I'm not seeing it. Maybe it's down here. Ah, here it is. Okay, so here's that course from the fall. I don't want that to show up anymore, so I'm going to go over here to these check marks, click on them, and they have clicked off. And I have to have all of these boxes clicked off in order for it not to show up on my home page. Now, once we've done that, we want to make sure that we hit submit at the bottom. Otherwise, none of this is going to change. So I'll hit submit. And now that fall course that was here is gone. So this is just a way to make it nice and streamlined so you don't have this huge list of courses right here. All right, now let me mention one more thing before I look back for questions. You're probably used to making your Blackboard courses available, but you may not be aware that you can do it all in one fell swoop over here on the left-hand side. So you may be used to going into each single course, going to properties, and making your course available. That's not necessary. If you click over here on the left side under this quickly function where it says course availability, notice it shows all of my courses, and all I have to do is move this to on in order to make it available. And I can make all of my courses available at one time. Now, of course, these are my summer and fall courses for this year. I don't want to make them available yet, but I could do it all at once right here in Quickly. And of course, there's other things you can do in Quickly. I find this the most useful. Most of my other stuff I want to go into my course, except perhaps for grading. There is the opportunity in Quickly to grade as well. Notice right down here at the bottom, you can hit needs grading, and you can go and grade anything in your course that needs grading. And notice it tells you by course what needs grading. Now right now I only have one course, and it's telling me I've got some items in my course that need to be graded. Let me go back and see if you have questions. Okay. Not seeing any new ones. Okay, so I want to show you the calendar option in Blackboard. A lot of people want to use the calendar option and are not aware of how to use it. So I'm just going to bring it up in my e-community again. It's already in my course. So I'll go to my e-community. Let me go back there for a second for the person who asked whether or not they can go into the e-community. Here is the name of that e-community. And even though it's listed as BCTC, there is no password involved. All you have to do is put that into your search box, BCTC Teaching and Learning Center, and you could join the e-community. I don't see any reason why you couldn't do it from another college. So if you are interested in that, if you're interested in the PD sessions that I am putting up online, certainly feel free to join the BCTC Teaching and Learning Center. All right, so I was about to talk about calendar. Now, I, of course, don't have a calendar button here in this e-community, but I can go ahead and put one in. So what I'm going to do is go here to our little plus button where we usually add content, but I'm going to add a tool link. And I'm just going to call it calendar. And all we have to do is look at type and go down here. And here is the calendar option. And of course, I want to make it available to users. Now, anything that you do as a Blackboard assignment where Blackboard grades it, any exam, any assignment are automatically going to be populated onto a Blackboard calendar. But let's say you have some offline stuff that you want to put into the Blackboard calendar for your students. All you've got to do is click on your calendar. And now notice this has, well, right now it's showing me the stuff that's in my stats class that's due, but we can add some new stuff. So all I have to do is go over here to this plus sign and create a new event. I'll click on that. And maybe you want them to turn in a stats project. And I'll make it due on the 23rd of March. And I can hit save. And notice it now appeared on the calendar for them. And of course, we can do this for anything that we want to add that is offline. The stuff that is already part of our course is already inside of this. And I thought I heard a question pop up, so let me go back. Okay, so Paige has added a link for those who are interested in good resources to a Blackboard, a link that James added earlier. And let's see, James McCumbee has a question. Whenever I go to calendar within one course, it shows the due dates for every course simultaneously. How do I change that? Good question. Let me see here. I think if we go over here to the right, we can determine which course. So, I'm sorry, to the left. I don't know my left from my right apparently. But if I wanted to show the deadlines for this course, for example, I should be able to click on that. And it looks like that is the deadlines for the bio course. Let me see if I can change it over to a stats class. No, it's doing all of them simultaneously. Yeah, I don't know the answer to your question offhand, James. It looks like as a faculty member, we're seeing the deadlines for all of our courses. Now, the students are not. So if we click over to the student view, and this is the e-community, so it should show what the students are seeing. Well, now I've clicked on the bio class. Let's see if I click on something else. Let me try.
Hey, Barbara.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Paige. I think it's just turning those check marks on and off, but it may need to refresh or something.
Refresh. Okay. Okay.
Well, so I think
yeah,
it's
I thought so too, but it
that are
doesn't
next to the different colors.
Yeah. It doesn't seem to be doing it on this page, but that may be that I just need to go out and back in again. Okay. Let me move on to the next thing then. So let's say you would like to place your calendar also on a content page. So I'll just use one of my PD training things for this because I can go back later and fix it. But I've got some content pages here. I'm just going to go into this one down here. And all I've got to do, again, is go down to a tool link. So if I want to add my calendar onto a page, I'm going to choose course link. And whoops, there's my course link hiding. Oh, it's organization link in the e-community. That's why I'm not seeing it. All right, and now I can go and find this tool. So now that I've brought this up as a course link, I am going to choose to browse, and you'll notice it takes me in here, and I can browse and find my calendar. I've got the calendar pulled up, and I can hit submit. And now the calendar appears within my content area. So we can click on the calendar and there it is. And I tend to like to do this along with my syllabus on the syllabus button and my starting information to put the calendar there for them as well. So in case they want to see it all in one glance. All right, so let's now go to that reports option that I was talking about. We don't have much time left, so I want to talk about reports for a moment. So I'm going to go back to my course for reports. Before I do, let me very quickly, I hear some questions possibly coming up, so let's see. Okay, so Elizabeth Cole says, I use a countdown clock widget on my announcements page to keep students focused on completing their modules by the monthly deadline. Oh, I like that. That's a good idea. And then Elizabeth Cole also says content in the calendar probably depends on their associations, their courses, and groups. Okay. All right. Now, let me go back again and show you these reports. Now, I will say this. This is the last thing I'm going to show you, but reports take a long time to generate. Typically, a report takes about 10 minutes before I'm actually able to run it. So what I want to talk about under reports is what information these reports give you. So I'm going to go ahead to the evaluation part again. And you'll see that it says course reports under evaluation. And I talked about earlier how if you have your statistical analysis clicked as enabled, you can run all these reports. And I think this is very important information. So the first report that you can run, and this one takes a while, is to look at user activity inside of your content areas. So if you've got that statistical review set up already, then you can find out, are they actually reading the assignment? You can check and see if they are spending time with that assignment open. How much time are they spending doing a quiz? This will tell you. How much time are they spending in each individual content area? You can find out, is there an area that's taking them a whole lot more time? Is there an area that's proving a lot more difficult just by running this report? The next report is an activity overview. It will tell you who has been active the most in what areas, how much time each student is spending in an area. And I'm going to talk about one here. If you wanted to list it by just by one student, you could figure out if a student is really spending time actually doing things. You've probably had those students who said, I spent hours on my homework last night, and you can look it up using this little report right here. Did they really spend hours, or are they making that up? Now, course coverage, I don't use that a whole lot. You can get single Blackboard information for all of your courses. I wouldn't necessarily suggest that one as much as these first two. This one down here, course performance, tells you how people are performing in comparison to other courses of the same caliber. So how's your course in comparison to others? This one gives you a summary of the user activity. When are people on? What is the most or the greatest amount of, or I should say, which day is most heavily frequented? For example, I used this one and I noticed that a lot of my students use their Blackboard the day that things are due. So I have due dates on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and by golly, that's when my students are most active in the course. And then single course user participation report. I talked about earlier, you have that student who says, I'm spending forever on my assignments. This one will tell you for a single user, how much time are they spending, and how does that compare to the average time that other people are spending in the course? And then this will give you a student overview of all of your students at once. How are they all performing as a whole in this course? This will tell you, if you use discussion boards, how active are your students in the discussion boards? Are there students who are really not doing what they should be doing in those discussion boards? And then this one will tell you the student activities in groups. So if you have them grouped in Blackboard, you can check and see whether or not they're active within their groups. These reports are all extremely helpful. They'll tell you all kinds of information about what your students are doing and who really isn't putting in the time and who really is putting in the time on the assignments. Let me take questions since we're almost at time here. Delilah Turner, this is off topic, but you mentioned weighted columns earlier. How do you assign new value to a column? For example, assignments are worth 30% of the total grade. I am a new instructor. Okay, I've got a minute left, Delilah. I'm not sure I can show you that at the moment. Did she? Okay. But yeah, she's actually moved out. I don't know if she lost connection or what. Okay. Wait a minute. I see a couple more covering up. Sharon says, I'm covering this in a session coming up. James has a link there for Delilah, but I think she accidentally went out. And then Elizabeth Cole, I use full grade center reports, create report to make and run midterm, Starfish progress survey, and final grade reports printable. And you mail those to the students too. Okay. All right, that concludes what I have for the hour. I don't think I have Tom actually to do any more. So, Shad, did you want to say anything before we finish up? Is he still here?
I'm sorry, I was trying to click on the mic button and all the icons underneath it kept highlighting.
Oh.
No, I think this was a great webinar, and I believe everybody here would agree with that. Quick question, everybody. Did you all learn in the chat area? Can you write something that you learned today that you'll actually go back and use? I mean, we learned some great stuff like the review status, user progress, reports and stat tracking, test analysis, adaptive releases, performance dashboard. We learned so many great things today. That's great, Teresa and Deanna and Gina. Thank you very much. Right, color-coded grade books and stats tracking. Thanks, Elizabeth. And so again, just a reminder that we will be posting the recorded session, the recording of this session today, along with a transcript of this chat area for you all to look over later. And again, when we send that email, there will be a survey attached, a survey link attached to that email. And we encourage everybody to get on there and let us know their thoughts. And so we can constantly get these webinars out there. And again, if you have any suggestions for webinars, and yes, Elizabeth, you can share the recording with coworkers who didn't attend. Absolutely. The more people who get to see this, the better. And again, if you have a suggestion for a presentation, please let us know. Contact myself or Paige Brooks Jeffers. And if you're willing to present, please let us know that as well. Again, Barbara, thank you. Round of applause for all your help today.
Thank you.
And we'll see everybody soon. Thanks again.